Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of Webflail, the podcast dedicated to uncovering the greatest failures behind the greatest Webflowers, because success often comes after learning from many failures. I'm your host, Jack Redley, a failure connoisseur, and today my guest is Matt Evans, Webflow developer and UI designer for 8020, a global no-code agency. It's an honor to have you here, Matt.
No, it's nice to be here, Jack. I've listened to all of your episodes so far.
See, I don't even think my mum's done that. So I'm not sure if I should be worried or grateful. Maybe a bit of both. Thank you very much for listening to all of them.
No, I'm very nosy, I guess, as a person. So it's when you're cooped up in your office all day, it's good to have a bit of nose around and see what other people are doing. And listen to the podcast is a good way to do it.
Yeah, I've heard. Sorry,
I'm saying walking the dog is my. It used to be commuting, but now it's the walking the dog in the morning or pushing the little guy around with his pram in the pram. So it's nice to listen to people in my own world chatting about my own world problems, which is quite nice.
Yeah, well, I've heard someone describe this podcast as design therapy, which is a huge honor. So, and I'm sure this episode will be no different. So, at the end of this episode, or towards the end, we're going to do some community questions. But if anyone's watching along live, hi to Claudia, hi to Dale, hi to anyone else that's watching on LinkedIn or YouTube. Feel free to ask questions. We'll cover them kind of as and when it's appropriate to. But at the end, we'll definitely ask any questions that anyone puts in there. And let's get into this thing. So your Twitter bio, Matt, says you're a former product manager plus Coffee Co owner, but now you work for 8020. So help us connect the dots. How did you get to where you are today?
Oh, gee, well, So I started in London I always wanted to get into kind of advertising and business. Although I went to uni and did a sports science degree because I think that was the only thing I was qualified to do at the time. So I did that, and after that, I just went into London and started in a media agency, which essentially is, if anyone doesn't know, and I didn't know at the time, to be honest either, is buying the space that ads go into, essentially. And my first role was luckily in the digital department. So I wasn't doing TV ads or press ads. I was just doing online ads. And I did probably did 5 or 6 years doing that, like just cut my teeth on the London lifestyle, beers after work, the commuting and flat sharing and all that sort of stuff. And during that time, I met a good friend, two friends actually, Ollie and Kate, who I ended up living with. And we were always like chewing the fat on how do we get out of this industry and how do we do something that's a little bit more exciting and a bit more adventurous. And that led us to starting a coffee company, essentially. We basically the short story is basically we got frustrated with not being able to get fresh coffee through our letterbox. Because we always used to order it online, and then like you get there on a Wednesday, you run out of coffee, and you realize that the postman couldn't fit the coffee through your letterbox. So we ended up working out how to get coffee through your letterbox in a jiffy bag, and then thought, well, other people might have the same problem. So we thought, right, why not launch something like that? So we launched something, and we did all right. I spent probably 2 years full time doing it, and about 4 years in total running a coffee subscription across the UK. So that's how we got into coffee. I'm not I enjoy coffee. I wouldn't say I'm super knowledgeable about coffee. We had a coffee roaster down in Devon in the southwest of the UK, who was our coffee expert, like a husband and wife team down there, and they were awesome. So they did all the coffee bit, and we did all the marketing and tech bit. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like Christmas Day, I think was it 2000 when was it? It must have been 2012, I think. I remember being in the garage packing coffee, and my mum, getting frustrated that I should be like, I don't know, playing Monopoly around the fire or something. that was it was really exciting. It taught me a lot about products, like marketing, customer service. But the main bit that I really liked was the tech bit. So building the experience, building the web. I'd always been into sort of trying to build websites, but never officially. So yeah, that led me on to going. I sold the coffee company actually back to the roasters after about 3 or 4 years. And that I was like, right, I need to grow up a little bit, get a proper job or a proper career. Because the coffee was great, but it wasn't paying enough to like look after my London rent, essentially. So yeah, then I thought, right, well, I really like tech, but I'm not a developer. I really like design and sort of the UX side of things, but I'm not really a massively strong artistic designer. And I really like the business side of things. So I like going, right, yeah, what's the P&L on this business, but also what are the margins we're making on products, and how can we buy in stuff for less and then multiply that to make money, kind of thing. So product management kind of like hit the sweet spot of in between of those, like tech, UX, customer marketing, and the business side of things. So I blagged my way into product management role at a startup in London, and yeah, I did that for 4 years, I think. So for my like really good bits, met some great people, and also realized that I'm not maybe meant to be a project manager or a manager of stuff. I'm more like, I like being down with the weeds and actually building stuff. I couldn't. Although my wife will tell you that I love planning stuff, but I actually like the doing as well, and sometimes product management doesn't involve a lot of the doing. You're kind of moving chess pieces around, and I got a bit disillusioned with that. And it was only when Webflow came along, I was like, oh man, I can visualize stuff and get back into that world of building stuff without being a hardcore front end developer or a hardcore designer. I can do a bit of both, So it's a long story, but it's a short story. Yeah.
It's a great intro to you, because I feel like from your Twitter bio, there are so many questions. And I'm just like, okay, we need to answer this stuff at the top of this interview, because otherwise we're not going to really understand kind of how you've got to where you are today. So that's really, really handy. And then obviously from there, you were Webflowing, got good at Webflow, and then we're like, right, I'm going to join 80/20. Was that kind of the transition?
Yeah, no. So I got into Webflow almost accidentally. So I was on there's a website called MakerPad, and it's run by this chap called Ben. He's actually sold it to Zapier in the last year. But Ben basically used to do demo videos of how to use no-code tools to build real products, essentially. So he'd go and, how can you build Airbnb, but with no-code tools? And I remember I think I joined it, and it cost me about £150, I think, at the time, for a lifetime membership. And I was just hanging around those forums, just like trying to get into this community of building stuff without being a proper techie nerd. And I met this guy called Jack. He's No Code Jack on Twitter, and he had a question that involved Webflow. And I thought, do you know what? Because I did a bit of front end stuff with the coffee, so I did a bit of learned CSS and tiny bit of JavaScript, but mainly CSS. And I thought, I can help this guy. So I just thought, right, I'll dive into Webflow, and I helped Jack out, and then got chatting to Jack, and then a couple of weeks later, Jack said, hey, do you do any Webflow work? I said, yeah, no, I'll give it a go. And he kind of set me up with a job, essentially, which it wasn't a full-on website. It was prototyping a five-a-side football league in the Netherlands that we were going to build. Well, part of the team was going to build it in React, so a proper back end, a proper dynamic front end. But the client didn't want to invest all the money into building without knowing what he was building. So I started building out a prototype in Figma, and then ended up quickly default into Webflow, and we built out a prototype in Webflow. And that kind of got me into thinking about the power of Webflow and knowing the power of Webflow. And yeah, I ended up like, I was again around MakerPad. Ben, who founded MakerPad, then referred me to the founder of Deal, who Deal do a lot of kind of like cross-border payroll, and they're massive in the US. And yeah, got on a call, and I did their first iteration of their website. I took their Figma design and turned it into a Webflow site, and that kind of set me on the path. Few early really good connections, and then yeah, I was freelancing, I guess, for a year and a half on various projects. And yeah, I don't know. I came across Matt, who's the founder of 8020, and also Max Joels, who's my colleague at 8020. And somehow I got onto their radar as being someone who knew how to use Webflow. And yeah, they invited me to join the team. It wasn't even... I didn't have a path going, oh, I want to join an agency or I need to join an agency. I just kind of, because I didn't like, it's something maybe we'll cover later, but I never really talked to other Webflow people. I didn't realize the community was such a strong community. Like, obviously it wasn't even as strong then as it is now, but it was still quite strong. But I was in my room just playing around, and I wasn't really out there. But yeah, I didn't realize that actually joining an agency is a great way to learn off other people and kind of upskill very, very quickly, because you've got other people and clients and stuff coming at you versus maybe the smaller jobs I was doing when I was freelancing. So yeah, that's how I ended up at 8020. It was kind of organic. It wasn't part of a master plan or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting, the two things that you said there. Like, firstly, how just putting yourself out there and kind of building in public means that people are aware of what you do, and they're more likely to, lend a hand, help, give you feedback on your designs and whatever. And that's one way of growing really, really fast, I've found, just putting your hand up and being like, I'm making this. Like, what do you guys think? Type thing. And that seems to have kind of got you into a position where you join the agency. And then once you join the agency, you learn really, really fast, because you are exposed to just way bigger scale of projects. There's people from marketing teams and whatever else to kind of think about their concerns and egos and asks. And it just makes you so much better as a designer. So couldn't agree more there.
Yeah, definitely. I think that I've been quite lucky that I worked in the media agency world before. So I was working for an agency that serviced clients. So they employed us to do a job, and we had to go into meetings. And so my soft skills developed massively from kind of my early career onwards. So dealing with clients, I quite enjoy just jumping on calls with clients. It's not something that I fear. Like, a lot of people, I think, who work, especially in the freelancing world, at least initially, that's one of the biggest things, like the barriers to overcome, is how do you deal with clients, difficult clients, really nice clients, picky clients that you can't get in contact with, all those kind of things. A lot of that I'd already had experience with, whether it's sitting in with meetings with, the head of ITV, I'm like, oh my God, the head of ITV. And you realize that they're just a normal person doing a normal job. So a lot of that has set me in good stead for kind of the agency world, where you are dealing with bigger clients. They're not bigger clients. They just probably spend more money on their websites than the little clients do. But also the smaller clients, as in, the smaller jobs that you get, really picky clients and really mellow clients, and clients that don't drive the agenda forward, and clients who say no to everything. And all of that I probably have had already in my agency career in a different industry, which has helped massively. So yeah, I think that's why agency world for me is almost like I'm still a freelancer essentially, but I'm doing it in an agency context, and with like a massive team of people, like talented people around me that I can just bounce ideas off, and they can bounce out. And that's what I feel is pretty cool with the agency life at the moment. So
yeah, and it's really interesting how, even though you hadn't done that much Webflow before you joined 80/20. It sounds like your previous career has actually stood you in really good stead to, be part of a team. Like, teamwork is such an underrated skill for Webflowers, I think, because a lot of people come to Webflow, sitting in their underpants in their bedroom, like going on YouTube, and then they're like, oh, I can just make stuff. And actually being in a team is a completely different skill set that a lot of Webflowers don't have. And that lends itself to the soft skills that you need to deal with clients down the line. So yeah, it's fascinating to hear how your journey is not the most like linear one into Webflow, but actually all of those different elements have made you a confident Webflow today.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting because there's a lot of stuff flying around now, especially after a lot of people going remote, and go freelance. You can go freelance from straight away, and you learn Webflow, go freelance, and then I've got my uncle going, to his son going, hey, like he needs to go to an office because he needs to experience the office environment and all that sort of stuff. And I'm torn a little bit because I know the potential, the freedom you can get by going freelance and doing it yourself. But I also know the benefits of being surrounded by a big team and having to kind of cope with the big team dynamics that you have when you're in a big office. I don't think it quite works with the whole big team on Zoom. You don't build up those little soft skills that you have when you're in an office and you have to sort of, I don't know, even when you walk past the boss, that you get that. I know it shouldn't be like this, but it is. You get that feeling, or you get called in by the boss to ask your opinion on stuff. All those things, I think, are really, really good experience, like a solid foundation that maybe you don't get if you just dive straight into freelancing as a Webflower or a front ender or, whatever you're doing. So I don't know. If I was telling my son what to do, I'd probably go, get out into the working world, cut your teeth in teams, and then work out. Maybe you can go it alone, because you might not enjoy, you might get bored, you might not enjoy the job as much, or you might not get paid as much, but all those little soft skills that you learn, I think, are invaluable. You don't know you're picking them up when you're picking them up, but
and I think something that comes off the back of that as well is a lot of people that come on the podcast so far say one of the biggest failures they've had is hiring people. And I think part of the reason why that has been such a problem for people is that they haven't necessarily ever been hired before in like a traditional job role sense. They're obviously getting client work and stuff, so they're getting hired in that respect. But it's not like they've had a hiring procedure done for them, because they've kind of started Webflow at uni or whatever, and they've kind of started an agency and they're like hiring people off Twitter, and it's all kind of like, yeah, come on board. But I definitely think those kind of agency experience or working in a big team really, really helps kind of understand the soft skills, and generally will set you up if you're trying to set up an agency or something in the future. Okay, let's get into your failures. This is the juiciest part of the episode, so I really enjoy doing this. Tell me about failure 1. Failing to appreciate that done is almost always better than perfect.
So I think this, this is that whole, it floats around everywhere, doesn't it? From, product management it happens a lot. It's like, right, let's go for the MVP. Let's build a scooter. There's a famous, I think, diagram that says, you shouldn't start building the car. You should build a scooter first. And then once you've got the scooter and it moves, you can get from A to B, you build a slightly faster scooter. Well, that slightly faster scooter is a motorbike. And then you build a motorbike, and then, it's raining, so you want to stay dry. So instead of having a motorbike, you put 2 more wheels on it and put a roof on it, and it becomes a car. But all of the time, you're able to go from A to B, and you're moving and you're learning what works, what doesn't, how our engine works, how brakes work, all that sort of stuff. So that's a big sort of thing in product management. And I think that applies massively to Webflow projects. Like on the front of it, like Webflow is so good at getting stuff live super quickly. But I think the old way, lots and lots of sites are still built like this, is there is a more of a waterfall type approach to building sites where you spend 6 months building something and then boom, it goes live, and then we'll see what happens. And I think that creeps into the way that I've tended to work quite a lot, because rather than thinking, right, we can get something live, we can see how it works, and we can iterate on it, which obviously Webflow is brilliant at doing, because going from your designer to a published site is a case of clicking one button, which obviously can be dangerous. The idea that you hunker down and spend 3 months building something and then go live is something that I've let creep into a lot of my work that I do. So I can be on calls with clients debating. I had a client last year, an accountancy client, and we debated so much about the structure of their CMS library, and we probably spent 2 or 3 weeks debating this, trying things out, whatever. And at the same time, no one else was seeing any of this content or new, fresh brand that we designed, because we were fiddling around trying to make it perfect. When what we should have done is put the initial idea out there, which was really good. The content was out there, and then we should have spent the next week tweaking it, and then the next week tweaking it. And just, a lot of the times what you'll do, you'll come up with an idea, you put it live, and you realize you don't actually need to tweak it anymore because it does the job. So, again, in product management, a lot of teams will spend a lot of time ideating on their own in their own offices, with their own minds, with their own experiences, and realize that when they put it out in the world, it doesn't act or deliver the experience that the users want. And you have to change it all again. So I always think that the word perfect is really hard to find, because what is perfect? But I think I'd always encourage Webflowers to encourage their clients to go almost not step by step, because this isn't saying there's lots of steps, but go for something that works and something that delivers on the objective of the project. And then, a good example is stick the homepage up and then do the animations. Once content's up there, it's brilliant for SEO. Google will start indexing it quicker, although there's lots of technical benefits of doing this. But don't worry about the animation until you put it live, and then 2 days later you can work on the animations, and then 4 days later you can make those animations better, or you can add another section to the page, or whatever you might want to be. But I think the thing with Webflow is you can go up, you can push stuff up, you can take stuff down, you can tinker with it so quickly that you should do, I think. Yeah.
I've been needing to hear this because I'm redesigning the Webflail website, and the amount of time I've spent in Figma making page after page of I could do this layout, I could do this layout. And actually, like you say, just do the thing, just change it. It's not going to be perfect, so don't pretend it can be in Figma, and get something redesigned and rebuilt, and go from there. When is it a problem to launch something too quickly, though? Because you've talked a lot there about the benefit of having something out there in the world, and it's going to be SEO indexed. I completely hear you out, but you can undercook stuff. When should new Webflowers who are saying to their clients, look, we'll sort it out. We'll sort it out once we're in dev. When is that a problem?
I guess 80-90% of Webflow projects are going to be marketing pages. you've got things like Wiz, and you've got integrations coming online now, which will maybe allow us to do a bit more in terms of the web apps, where there's a lot more functionality involved and back end, and you're dealing with a lot more data, and that becomes a little bit more critical that you get things correct, But in terms of I guess if you're doing a brand new, fresh brand relaunch, for example, you might want to make sure that you have some red lines at least that you don't, unless you've ticked those off, you don't launch. So, maybe maybe it's the logo, maybe it's the color scheme, maybe it's I don't
brand
know.
identity.
Yeah, just the brand identity is consistent. So you still want to embody the values of your client or the site that you're doing. You don't want to be, you're only rough, but you don't have to be perfect. So I think maybe it's, I don't know, it's hard and it depends on every project, I guess.
Yeah,
but I've seen, and maybe I do get skewed a little bit by my experiences in product management, where I've been in teams where we've spent 6 months and effectively spent, £500,000 on salaries and lost sales, for example, building something, put it live, and it doesn't do what we think it's going to do, because we've fixated on being perfect. Instead, what we could have done is released something on month 1, iterated month 2, iterated. It's kind of like the agile versus waterfall approach. And maybe I'm probably clouding it a little bit too much with that approach, like that product management approach. But I think, sometimes I've been very guilty of almost getting clients into a debate about something, which really, at the grand scheme of things, if it is like it is, it's going to work and it's going to improve things for the client, and i.e. they're going to have a better website, performs better, it's better UX, but it's not necessarily what the end vision is going to be. And I've, maybe been guilty of almost getting them into a cycle of thinking, it's not ready. And, rather than going, this is good. Like, let's get it live. And then we can move on to step 2, which will be making what's live better, rather than hiding in the staging environment until it's ready to go,
What advice would you give to a Webflower that has a client that is like, maybe we could try out this copy or this animation or whatever it is, before launching, i.e. they're kind of second guessing your every decision making style, and you're like, look, let's get it live and then see, or how would you manage that type of situation?
It's tough. It is tough. I've had both clients who want to go really quick and don't, we'll deal with it later. And I've got hung up on the deal with it later needs to be sorted now. And I've had other clients, as you described, where they're changing their mind every 2 days. A loom comes through every 2 days. Oh, can we try? Oh, I've seen a site that does this. Oh, so-and-so does it. Like, I think, like, without, I listened to your last episode with Ben this morning, and he was really, some good advice from him was, like, try and get on the same page with the client before you do any real digging. So I think if you can get all of those elements in place. So, his good example was, what was it about? Like interactions, what is a fun site? Well, a fun site could be anything, but just showing examples and almost nailing down on what it should be or what it shouldn't be, allows you to set some kind of almost standards that you can all agree to, and then just enforcing them, saying, oh yeah, it's great that Stripe have just released their new site and they've got some, like, color gradients in the background. Guys, look, this is the objective of the site. We've reached those objectives. Let's launch it, and then let's investigate Stripe's new fancy
gradient or whatever,
next week, and always, maybe reference, not that you want to do yourself out of hours worked on a project, but sometimes go, well, that will cost you another 2 days of work, and that will mean I'm going to add that to the project cost, and just, you need to manage it, and you need to be sort of transparent with the client. I think some freelancers will just go, yeah, I'll do that, and let the bill kind of stack up, because it's obviously to our advantage. The more we do, the more we get paid, sort of thing, in certain aspects. So yeah, at the end of the day, you want to deliver a happy result for the client, and that means you've delivered good value, and it's not cost them more than you said or thought it was going to cost in the first place. So yeah, I think go back to Ben's episode and listen to his little anecdotes. I think he kind of nailed it. Like, have a huddle beforehand will help a lot of pain later on when you get to it, I suppose.
Yeah. So aligning client perspectives and
you're very good at summarizing things. You should be one of these AI paragraph shorteners.
I mean, I think that's a compliment. An AI paragraph shortener is something I've never been told I should be, but thank you. So what we are focusing on, just to summarize, is that aligning everyone's perspectives, understanding what the visuals are, the expectations of that mean that you can align decision making and anchor any decision to that. Yes, we could have a flying bird going through the screen and a preloader, but if the key thing that we're trying to do is get as many people on the site as quickly as possible, and that's going to affect load speed and so you can push back. But it's amazing how quick decision making is from the client's perspective when you do say, just so you know, that's going to cost an extra days rate or whatever. They're like, oh, actually, yeah, you're right. And it's kind of interesting how you can, dictate decision making a little bit by just kind of setting some boundaries as well.
Yeah, I think oddly, it's something that I've experienced recently is more actually in the agency world is, you have different types of clients, but conversely on the other side, you're doing you're providing a service to the client, which means you're a little bit of a gateway and a bouncing board for them to bounce ideas off. Or some ideas you'll go, okay, not sure that's a great idea because of X, Y, and Z. And some ideas you'll let through and say, oh, let's do that. And I think it's important that you develop those skills in saying, some clients want to move so quickly that it might sound like a good idea, but they might not have thought of all the possible repercussions of implementing that. And that's not just on cost or look and feel, but just generally on UX. It's just, I think, the job of the Webflow builder, because we are often employed not just to build stuff or not to design stuff, but actually create an experience, is like try and rein in those clients who want to do everything yesterday and come up with all these random new ideas. Like, some of them might be good, but don't like squash their enthusiasm, because that enthusiasm is really good, but you need to be a little bit of a triager, I guess, of make sure the right things go through.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a little bit like guiding a kid to a park. I don't know if anyone has done this who's watching, but my nephews, they get so excited about going to the park, but they might die on the way because they'll try and run across the road the whole time because they're so excited to get to the park because they can see the swings and they're like, oh my God, it's there. And I think it's kind of the same thing with clients. You kind of need to be like, yeah, the park's there. We're all excited to get there, but let's not die on the way. Well, that's my experience anyway. I'm not sure if anyone resonates with that. Probably the weirdest analogy I've ever used on this podcast. Tell me about failure 2. Failing to appoint admin experts.
Yeah, so this is my a reference to my Achilles heel that I've had since I started the coffee company, essentially. I do love spreadsheets. I love planning stuff out. I like financial planning, or let's not call it planning. Let's call it dreaming, because that's probably a better way of saying it. But I'm not very good at employing experts in those fields to do essentially for me, it's admin work, like my accounts. So doing my accounts, when you're a freelancer, or even now I'm working for 80/20, I have to do my accounts. I have to, put in my self-assessment, or when I was a business, I had to put in my accounts every year, do my VAT returns, do my tax returns, all those kind of things. And I wasn't very good at it. That's not my strong suite. So I ended up getting fines from you know, the government department saying you're late, and then you're still late, and you're still late, and I wasn't very good at dealing with all that stuff. And it wasn't until I got someone on board, probably halfway through the coffee company actually, and realized, look, I just need to employ this person. They love doing this. They're very good at doing it. They know, you know, they're like a T-shape. They know a bit about my business, but they know a lot about accountancy and tax and tax returns. Just employ those people. You know, it feels like they might, you know, I've got one now in Ireland, and, you know, it's not cheap. Well, it doesn't feel cheap, but it's probably the cost for a year of, you know, me getting a new monitor and a desk for and I'm like, oh, I need to sort out my back and get a great double widescreen curved monitor. But I could spend also that on making sure that my accounts are on time, that actually they might save me a bit of tax here or there, or they might make it easier for clients to pay me, or all those kind of things that are actually critical for you to expand. Because one, it means that you don't get caught like I did, not submitting stuff on time and getting random fines and stuff. But also, your head is no longer filled with any anxiety about when to do these things. You know, you pay them, and then randomly in the middle of the month they go, hey, right, we're sorting out your payroll. How much do you want to get paid this month? Oh, bear in mind, you got your tax bill to come up, you know, end of this year. So shall we set aside some money? And you're like, yeah, why not? And boom, they're done, you know, and you can concentrate on growing your business or working on those 3 projects that you've taken on, and you're rammed, you know. So I think just we like to think that we can do everything, and we think we're solopreneurs, as the new word has come out. But like, you've got to be responsible for the boring admin stuff. And I found that employing experts in those fields is often the way to do it. And I've failed massively at doing that. I've not learned, like, I'm not very good. Like the coffee company, I didn't do it early enough. Then when I was freelancing in the UK a little bit, I didn't do it early enough. And now I've come to Ireland, and I'm a year into working I still work for an agency, but I still got to do my local taxes. I still haven't done it early enough. It's like Matty, wake up and just, you know,
smell the roses.
Yeah, it is. And it's not sexy. It's not exciting. It's, well, oddly, it is exciting. I actually really enjoy speaking to my accountant now, because they've got lots of weird and wonderful ideas of how I should, you know, put the cost of my new desk through a company, or set up a company, and pensions and all that kind of stuff that are really, really actually important. So don't try and do it yourself. Well, you can, but I tried and failed. But employ people who do all the admin stuff really well, you know.
Don't you think this is the curse of the Webflower? You know, anything can be searched online. You're always working out problems. You're like, you know what? I can do it myself. I don't need to hire, you know, a 3D artist. I'll use Spline. I don't need to. Do you know what I mean? I think there's a kind of, there's maybe a mentality where it's like, I'll just do it myself. But yes, you can do it yourself, probably not very well. Like, you know, I could probably drive a Formula 1 car if I was just going in a straight line at 10 miles an hour. But there's no way I'd be able to drive that car very well, you know, round a track and like race well or whatever. Do you think that's the same kind of thing with Webflowers, who just have this mentality that actually has got them to a place where, you know, they're freelancing, they're doing well, but it might actually be hurting them in other areas of their life?
I don't necessarily know if it's a Webflow specific thing. I think, like, I have a shiny object syndrome. I think I don't know. You know, the whole cause and effect. I don't know if it's because I'm into Webflow. I have that. I think it's a lot of people who are attracted to no-code tools, especially, maybe index highly on the sort of ADHD inattention kind of vibe, where, you know, yeah, as you say, a new tool comes out, let's try it. We've got to build something. I don't care what we're building, but we've got to build something, you know. You know, you see it even in the agency world. We have like lots of tools. The guys will laugh at this, but we have loads of tools to manage stuff and automate stuff, and it's almost like we're doing that because we have to, and we can do, rather than because we need to. But I think, I don't know, we do like nice, I like shiny stuff. I don't actually like, you know, the new iPhone or this or that. I'm not that fascinated by that. But I do like doing stuff that keeps my mind excited, and doing my accounts isn't one of those. Well, I say it isn't. I actually got excited when I've, you know, signed the piece of paper saying I've got an accountant. I actually felt very, very amazingly good about it, because I knew that all that anxiety had gone out of my head, that someone else is dealing with it. And do you know what? If I've got a question about some new tax policy that comes out, I can pick up the phone and go, you know, Wendy, what does this mean for me? You know, like, is there anything I can do? Like, and just having that friend in that area, you know, a friend that I pay lots of money to every year, but the friend is really, really good. So I don't know if it's a Webflow thing specifically. I think maybe it's just maybe it's a creative, people in creative industries might maybe kind of suffer from it a little bit more, because, you know, we don't work in straight lines and boring boxes. I suppose we tend to work in open boxes and moving different directions all the time, and, you know, doing your taxes and every year on the same date, and doing your, you know, VAT returns is not maybe something that we really enjoy doing.
Yeah, I think you think you're going to be creative the whole time, and actually, to be really good at freelancing or agency running, there's a lot of boring, unsexy stuff that you need to be good at, I think. And yeah.
Well, I think that's my thing, is you can try and be good at it, but you're not going to be good at it. And you need to recognize, and that's my failure, is not recognizing that other people are much better at, and just employ them to do it. And, you know, you might think, okay, I'm going to have to work 2 extra clients this year to afford my accountant. But like, it honestly, it will it frees my mind up. It's almost, you know, it's almost like paying a speeding fine, you know, like, it comes through and you go, oh, and you bitch about it. And then the next one comes through and you've missed that early payment discount. And then you get a chaser. It's like, why don't I just pay it? I'm not going to get away with it. I'm like, just pay the fine to start. Like, employ the accountant. They're going to do their job. And I guess when you're getting into, like, maybe when you're growing your business, you might think of like having virtual assistants that can start helping you with meetings and all that kind of stuff. And you might think, oh yeah, don't worry, I don't need to. That's a luxury. But I know, you know, people who do that on a regular basis, and it massively helps their business. So just employ people to do the stuff that you find boring, because they employ us to do their website. They don't. An accountant won't. Well, maybe an accountant has tried to do, like, maybe some of the websites out there look like they've tried to do it themselves, but they employ us to do stuff that they're not good at. So we should also take that on board. And
yeah,
we can't do everything.
Recognize what you're not good at, or you're insanely bored by, and get help as and when you can. Good advice. Tell me about failure number 3 then. Failing to make time to speak with other professionals in the Webflow world.
Yeah, I think this is I think it's a realization. Well, okay, we've just been through quite a weird period of the world, I suppose, where we've all been, our sphere of connectivity has been shrunk in the real world, but also expanded in the remote world. And I think the async world has often, you know, has blown up as well. And I found that I got caught up in this async world of, you know, you could sit there watching YouTube videos of how to do X, Y, and Z all day long, or you could hang out in forums where, yes, you're speaking to people through a thread, but you're not really engaging them in the way that you would maybe if you do it like we are now, you know? So I think for the first few years as a Webflow, but even just as a front, when I was doing like a few ad hoc projects during the coffee stuff, I don't know, I've got better as I've got older, but I wouldn't want to go and knock on people's doors and ask them questions and get involved. I'd just hide behind the internet, as it were. And it's only recently this year, really, I've started to, when I've seen someone on Twitter, you know, Twitter is a great place, I just DM them and go, hey, do you fancy having a chat? And it's like, it's changed my perspective on everything. I've got to meet so many cool people just by doing that, and it's not necessarily help me with this or help me with that. It's just speak to real people in real time rather than kind of hanging out in comment threads or community forums or thinking that you're getting a lot of engagement with just watching YouTube things or listening to podcasts. A good example. I listened to, there's a podcast by a guy called James McKinnon who interviews indie hackers, and I felt like I've known James for a year and a half because I've listened. I religiously listened to his podcasts. But I reached out to him the other day and said, hey, we should have a catch up, and we had a catch up. And it's so much better. It's just, you get so much more out of it, I think, and you learn so much more. So yeah, I think not doing that earlier, I think, is a massive failure because realize I'm getting so much value out of it now. And even I met my first Webflowers in real life 2 weeks ago, and we were going to hook up for a half an hour coffee, and we ended up spending 4 hours in a coffee shop in Dublin just doing chin wagging about all sorts of random stuff, not just Webflow, but design, clients, good clients, bad clients, the weather in Ireland, and all random stuff like that. So.
Yeah, it's amazing when you actually meet in real life outside of Twitter and Zoom calls and stuff. I definitely found that with a meetup recently in London. But yeah, I think the advice there that I'll take from you and kind of say back to anyone that's listening is that reaching out to people that are in the Webflow community and just saying, hey, do you want to have a virtual coffee or meetup if they're local, whatever, is so powerful, not just from the point of view of having someone to refer work to and possibly receive work from, but also just like from a mental health perspective. The reality of just being on a screen for hours every day, probably in your room or your spare bedroom or whatever, it is quite lonely, and having that real interaction with people is so powerful. So if you aren't reaching out to people and DMing people and just saying, hey, like once a week, even if you're an introvert, I would just really recommend just DMing someone and just saying, hey, can I just ask you how you got to where you are, or can I just ask you a little bit about your background? Really interested by your Twitter bio or whatever. It's so powerful. It's completely changed my life as well in the last few months with Webflow. So do it.
Well, yeah, and you had that meetup the other day in London where I'd imagine a lot of the people who came are doing this for a first time, and they'll have lots of friends and family elsewhere, but in terms of that Webflow, meeting real Webflow people, Webflow people, we're no different from other people, I guess, but it's like the conference over in San Fran, like I'm getting a lot of FOMO because I'd love to walk in there and going, and like some of the guys in the US that I probably never meet, I'll never meet them because we're miles away. And to be able to go and everyone's there at the same time and just get that FaceTime and share a coffee or a drink or a pizza or something, it's just like, it's becoming more FOMO all of the time the more I do this, So I think the halfway house was just, I can't try, like my team is a great example. It's like we work all over the world. So one of our designers, Afrian, is in Indonesia. I'm in Dublin. We've got some of the team. Max is on the West Coast, East Coast, Canada, Ecuador, Mexico. And we're having a meetup in December, but I can't make it because it's miles away. And it's just the FOMO is real. So I'm just trying to get as much FaceTime with real people as I can. And it's massive. Yeah, as you said, it's massive. It's different. It's so different to watching a Loom video or listening to a podcast or typing on Slack. It's just, yeah. So I wish I did it earlier, and I'm gonna be so anyone wants to chat, honestly, just DM me maybe not any time of day, but the hours of like 8 a.m. and kind of 4 p.m. UK time. Just DM me. I just, even if we only chat for 5 minutes and realize we don't like each other, that's the rule as well. So.
You can just click the big red button, guys. Just click the big red button.
Exactly. My internet's gone down. See you later. Yeah.
But that's actually a real point to make as well. Like, I think, you know, sometimes people are like, oh, like, what if they don't want to talk to me, or, you know, whatever. And actually, people are way, way more open than you might think. Like, I've DM'd people that probably, you know, I'd imagine are very, very busy people, but actually, you know, they are just real people who will be up for just having a chat. Just like, you know, if you said hi to someone walking down the street, they'd probably say hi back. Like, people are not evil generally. So yeah.
And like we do often look at these things and go, oh, they're amazing at what they do. You know, like there's a chap who works at 8020, Anthony. Okay, and before I joined, I was like, man, this guy is good. Like, some of the sites he was churning, I was like, gee, like I'm a bit nervous meeting Anthony, you know. And then the first time we got on a call, it's just, geez, like he's such a cool dude, and he's so mellow and chilled and unassuming, and not just like all the stuff that I thought would come with this big Webflow expert. I was just like, Anthony, you're pretty cool. And he's just, you know, and it's just those things that makes it. Like, there's one guy I catch up every month now. Every month we just jump on a call and we just talk about random non-Webflow stuff mixed in with it, and it just makes my day so much better. So yeah, definitely do that.
Awesome.
Definitely DM me, because I don't think my DM's open. I don't know how to open them, but I need to get like a SavvyCal link or something like that.
Okay. Well, I can talk to you about that after this call. Yeah. But Claudia's just said Alessia is organizing a Webflow conference watch party in London. So if you guys are in the UK and thinking about all meeting up to watch that, on the 9th of November and the 10th of November, I believe. Get in touch with Alessia.
And we're trying to do one in Dublin as well. We've got three of us at the moment, so maybe 4. So if there's any more, we'll definitely hire a space out. So
epic. There's a threat. If anyone's in Ireland who's watching now, get on that. Send Matt a message. Okay, let's get into the community questions. We've got a few in the chat here. One from Dale. I want to say Jansen. I don't want to pronounce your name wrong. One of those is definitely wrong. Maybe 2. Do you have an exclusive work contract with 8020, or do you accept assignments outside of the agency?
Good question. So we are all essentially contractors, because we all work across the world. We're all contractors within the agency, and our main commitment essentially is to make sure that we look after the 8020 clients. So yeah, I'd say if someone asks, have you got a day job? That's my day job. What we tend to do is we have a 4-day week. So Monday to Thursday is your commitment to agency work, and then Friday is very flexible. So, you know, often if we've got a big project on, that Friday would be taken up because we need to dedicate some time to our clients. But if it's a little bit quieter, or if you want to work at the weekend or evenings on someone else, whether that's, you know, learning, doing other client work, then you're free to do it. So it's definitely not a case of you can't do anything. So yeah, like I can't sort of emphasize how much 8020 is such a cool. It's not really an agency; it's a collection of people who are just really cool and work on clients. You know, we have PMs and we have devs and we have designers, and you end up working with different people on different projects. And it does feel like we are a bunch of contractors, but we're all glued together by this 8020 culture. And I think, you know, Matt and Seb, and I guess everyone on the team has done such a good job at, like, you feel like you're part of a company, a big company. Like, the 8020 name is obviously, we work hard, but 8020 name is very well thought of in the Webflow world. And yeah, we kind of, it's a full-time job, but yeah, we can do contract work on the outside. I haven't, especially my first year with 8020, I haven't done much, if any. So But that's probably testament to just like
how busy you are.
Having my first little kid, which obviously takes up all your spare time, and also just being busy with 80/20 clients as well. So
this one from Ben Zelinsky. So you guys both getting shout outs this episode. What is the one single important feature that Webflow doesn't have and should have, in your opinion?
Doesn't have and should have. Good question. I don't know. So when I did a 3-month coding course, a coding camp, I guess, back in the day, and I really was a big fan of version control with, where you could create branches, work on a branch, test it. If it didn't work, throw it away. Or if it did work, you can merge it into the main project and off you go. So I think, although a lot of projects, I'd say most of the projects are worked on by one dev at a time, I think as Webflow develops, and I know they'll probably announce loads at the conference in terms of permissions and, devs, the senior dev or the junior dev or whatever they want to call it in terms of working in the designer. I think if we had some sort of version control, it would be brilliant, because you could start playing around with those features that the client wants, go, oh, you can try it out. You can put it on the staging site. You can see how it works. You can get them to test it on their phone, knowing full well that it won't ever get onto that production site unless you wanted to. So yeah, I definitely say that would be massive for Webflowers in the future, not just as teams, but individuals. I think going back to how we managed the kind of shiny new thing syndrome with clients wanting to tart up their homepage or put some whizzy animation in. At the moment, it's quite, even though you have that rollback, it's quite hard to experiment with stuff without really throwing away what you have already. So yeah, I think that would be very cool. Very hard to do, extremely hard to do. I don't know how the hell they do it, because Git, the way Git does it, is very smart, and no one's come close to replicating how they do it. But yeah, I think that would be good.
Interesting. I want to talk to you about this stuff after, but these are quick fire questions, so I got to go through them. All right. Okay. Is being just a Webflow developer already a niche, or is it important to niche down further, in your opinion?
Is it? Well, I guess from a niche point of view, when I was freelancing, I would do design and dev. My design wouldn't be my strongest point, but I would do design and dev. Now this last year with 80/20, I'm a dev only. So we have talented designers in the agency or from the client's agent, the client's side, that would do all the dev. And I niche down on turning Figma essentially into dev. How you would niche down on that again, I don't know. I think it's a good niche to be in. I think, if they'll be, like creative agencies used to have, you'd have teams. So teams of two essentially for TV ads or in press ads, and they work together because they bounce ideas off. I think there'll be more of design dev teams coming up. So I think if you're a Webflow dev, if you can find a really good designer to partner with, I think that's a super powerful team. So I wouldn't say squirrel yourself away as I'm just a Webflow dev. I think do that as in that's you, but see if you can get your network or a more official partner in the design side. And then you've got you can cover all bases, I think, without, you're not going to be jack of all trades, but a client can come to you and go, yeah, we want to do this. And you go, oh yeah, okay, we can do that. And we can do that. And that's what Webflow allows you to do, I suppose.
Interesting answer. What is the most underrated Webflow skill, in your opinion?
I guess the soft skills, I suppose, is say going back to we're all very you see Twitter, oh, I need a Webflow dev, and people start whacking up their portfolios, and which is great. You know, portfolios are great, but that almost, I think, unrepresents the amount of work that goes into launching a successful site. It's not just how it looks. I think there's so much behind how it looks, or although our currency is often, it used to be, you know, designers' currency used to be Dribble, and Webflow currency is now portfolio or your showcase page or whatever. I think that means that you get lots of people can do that, but the soft skills under the hood, that, you know, the client management, the you know, helping guide a client, knowing that, you know, raising the things of SEO and accessibility and all, being confident enough to talk about all those elements, I think is massively important. So yeah, but soft skills, I think, is probably the most underrated bit. That separates good Webflow designers from great Webflow freelancers, I think.
There's the quote of the episode right there. How did you get your first clients, and would you recommend that same strategy for people who are starting out now to get their first clients?
Yeah, I think I touched on it earlier. I got mine just by helping someone out with a part of a page. They had an issue and trying to help them out. So I think I was quite lucky in that respect. But I would say that strategy of being in the middle of the community, being a positive influence on the community. So not going in and saying, oh, this is, you know, this, if you go in the coding community, some people will start shooting you down. Oh, that's not the best way to do it, or that's not efficient, or that's da 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 da. I think just building, helping people build what they want to build. And sometimes that might be really complex stuff. Sometimes it might be really simple stuff. And before you know it, you get a bit of a name for yourself in the Webflow community as being a positive, approachable, but yet you know what you're doing. And that can get you some leads. You know, we live in a bubble. Like, our clients don't live in our Webflow bubble. So yeah, I think you still need a profile of sorts. But yeah, I think just being approachable and helpful and open and not charging money straight away. You know, practice in public, as it were. I don't know if that's helpful.
No, I think it is. I mean, just generally be approachable. I think tell people what you offer as well. Like, a lot of people, you know, might, like, if your friends and family don't know what you do, then, and they are probably, you know, the most likely people to like, know, and trust you, then your first gig might be from them. But if you don't tell them, then you know, they might not be able to help you help them, as it were. So I'd say having a profile, not just necessarily online, but also, you know, just telling your friends and family what you do, I think can be really, really powerful too. What is the one piece of advice you would give a freelancer starting out?
Get an accountant, I think.
Okay, yeah. Short and sharp. That's absolutely.
No, I think you have like get the boring stuff off your plate, and it will just one it will encourage you to drive forward, because you know that, you know, you I don't know, you've established some, you put foundations in the ground a little bit that you maybe can't row back from. But also it just clears the deck, and it just means you can focus on, you know, getting new clients, practicing, doing the stuff that will make a difference, you know. Yeah,
that makes sense. And what is the ideal client for you?
Ideal client. So I guess from my product management background, it's like we always, the best initiatives we used to work on had a really clear set of objectives at the start. So what are we trying to achieve? So what does success look like? What does failure look like? And what assets do we have at our disposal? So if you've got a client that comes and their first opening thing is, I want it to look like this, or I've seen so and so do this, or whatever, it's great, but it doesn't give you anything to hang stuff on when the hard decisions start coming up. So I think if a client comes to you with a clear set of objectives, it's amazing, because it's not prescriptive. It allows you to ideate. It allows you to come up with some thoughts and show off your experience. But it also gives you some rails to go on. You know which direction you have to go. Everyone's clear. This is how we're going to measure success. And yeah, just everything falls off that really easily. I think if someone comes to you with, I don't know what to do, or it's really hard to it's not necessarily our job to set the objectives,
to tell them what their business is.
Yeah, I think we can be a sounding board, and as the more you do it, the more you can be a sounding board. Say I've had a client in the sort of SaaS field. It was in the courses, actually. They do online education courses, and I haven't done any business stuff related to that, but I've done work with a lot of SaaS companies, and so me being able to bring my experience in there means I could question some of their objectives. But at least they had objectives. They had things that I could go in and critique and help them understand. And we formulated a sort of a fresh set of objectives that then I could work from. But if you have a client with a blank piece of paper, we need a website, is the common one. It's like, oh, we just need a website. It's like, well, you need to be able to dig down below it. But if a client comes to you with that, it's like, dream. I don't need to worry about this. There's no ambiguity. They know what they want. And it's my job to get excited about delivering to that objective, essentially.
Yeah. So you don't have a particular industry. It's just, if clients have their shit together, that's your ideal client, essentially.
Yeah. I'd love it. I'd love, in the day, when I was thinking of, when we first came over to Ireland, I looked at all the rugby. So Ireland has 4 provinces that play rugby, and they're all on WordPress. Not that matters, but they're all on WordPress, and they're horrendous. The ticketing experience is horrendous. The finding out what fixtures is horrendous. Everything is horrendous. So I thought, right, I'm going to redesign all of these websites, make them all different. They're all owned by essentially an umbrella company in Ireland. So all the teams are paid, they're funded by a central rugby union. And I thought, I'm going to just make, and then I'll be able to take 4 websites and I'll be able to work on them full time. And I'll be the person who can make sure they all work correctly, and I can do it quickly because it's Webflow, and I can integrate it with the back end. So I think if I saw someone down the park and had a coffee and they said, oh yeah, we're head of digital for the Irish Rugby Union, what do you do? I would be over the moon to pitch them and try and get them as a client.
All right. All you need to do is find out, which coffee shop they go to in the park, and you're going to be there, aren't you?
Yeah, Ireland's a very small place, so I've actually, I played tag rugby with a few people up in, but yeah, I'm happy at the moment. So maybe in the future.
I'm excited to see how this one plays out. Are you ready for the final question? This is the hardest question you will have been asked this episode.
Yeah, go for it.
You ready? Okay. We've talked a lot about your failures, but what is your next failure going to be?
So yeah, because I listened to loads of episodes, I thought about this when I was walking the dog, but I've forgotten what I was going to say.
At the crucial moment.
I know. What is my? I think maybe on the subject of just being a freelancer, it's just failing to choose the right direction that I take in the next 3, 4, 5 years in terms of how I work and what kind of work I do. So I'm this is the first. I feel real part of an agency right now, and they're I'm around a lot of really good people every day. But there's always that green field that says, yeah, but if you went out alone, you could make all this money yourself. And I think, I'll probably fail making the wrong decision on that front. I think that'll be, I don't know. Hopefully I don't fail, but I got a feeling that me liking shiny new things and getting bored with status quo and all that sort of stuff might encourage me to make a wrong turn there. I might stay where I am. That might be the wrong turn for me. I might decide, oh, let's go freelance on my own. That might be the wrong turn for me, but I don't know. I'm being quite honest here, actually. Hopefully,
yeah, no, this is very candid.
Max and Seb don't watch this.
No, but I think it's important to say that in the context of Webflail, the whole point is we're trying to uncover failures, but also, I guess, highlight that every single thing that in hindsight looks like a failure is actually dictated the successful position that you are now currently in. And I kind of, maybe this is a little bit of a silly thing to say, but every failure is, dictating the success, i.e., you're going to pivot from failures, you're going to learn from failures. And that's kind of hence why that final question I think is fascinating, because you are anticipating what mistakes you are going to learn from. And hence, it's not really a failure. That's a bit stupid because the whole context of this thing is called Webflail, and failure is a key part of it. But actually, it's learnings. So, all in all, what I'm trying to say is there's no need for any existential angst, Matt, at the end of this episode. And if your coworkers are watching, they need not worry.
No, that's fair enough. I think actually, if I was to summarize what Webflow has done for me, is it's empowered me with a skill that I feel confident for the next 10 years, which you don't always get when you're in a 9-to-5 job. I think, like everything, ebbs and flows and, but I think for the first time in my life, I've actually felt like, my foundations are that big and I can do anything I want to do if I want to do it based on the skills I have with and Webflow takes a lot of credit for that. It's a great tool, but just that and the community, that plus the community means I feel like, I can walk out the door going, hey, I can look after myself for a long time yet.
I think Webflow plus community is very much an empowering combo. Let's end the episode there. All of Matt's Twitter and LinkedIn and stuff are in the show notes. He genuinely means it when he says reach out to him and say hi. Matt will do the same to you if you don't to him. So why not take the first step and message him, ask him questions about this episode or anything else. He's a very knowledgeable guy. I know that because I've had one of these conversations with him before this episode. So do that. If you haven't signed up to the Webflail Roundup, I recommend doing that. You will see the edited version of this podcast episode out Tuesday, midday GMT. And there's going to be 3 Webflow jobs, 1 article, and 3 inspirational websites in there as well. So go and sign up for that at webflow.com if you haven't already. Matt, do you want to leave us with any parting words?
Oh, gee, you're putting me on the spot.
Sorry. I mean, that is kind of the context of this live podcast episode. It is tough. It is a weird concept. I understand. But
I don't know. Without cliche, just go out and build stuff. Like, I think the beauty of Webflow is you can build it, forget about it, build it, push it out there. Just dive in there every day. You don't have to do it every day, but just build stuff. And it's so much fun, and opportunities will invariably come your way if you start sharing it with people and catching up with people and hanging out with people. Yeah.
Build stuff, do it in public. Crazy things can happen to your life.
Exactly.
I promise. Epic. Thanks so much, Matt. Thank you for everyone watching. Thank you to Dale, Claudia, Felix, anyone else that's commented, Tristan. Appreciate you all. See you next week. I will be interviewing Marcelo Russo. Another big name in the Webflail bank. Bye then, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, guys.